Hey everyone, welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It is Wednesday, July 24th. I'm going to talk to you about two things today: the Chamber of Commerce and the City of Santa Barbara and its economic development proposal, and also the Democratic Party snubs Mike Jordan and his bid for re-election. First, please hit subscribe on YouTube and also visit santabarbaratalks.com. Consider a financial contribution to support my podcast. I do it separate from all my other journalism work. And I appreciate anything you can do to pay for my time and my expansion and my audience growth and all that great stuff. santabarbaratalks.com. Okay. All right, let's take a breath. I just want to say from the outset, Kristen Miller does a tremendous job with the Chamber of Commerce, president and CEO. The Chamber has grown from Goleta, Carp, Santa Barbara, this merger, and they've grown membership, and we haven't seen them this involved since the Steve Cushman heyday of his time as leader of the Chamber of Commerce. So this is not about them. This is about Santa Barbara and government and the fact that transparency is everything in government. So Santa Barbara wants to enter in a financial contract with the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce to create an economic development proposal. They want to spend $250,000 in reserves, general fund, waterfront, airport, this year, like this fiscal year, like in the next month or so. And then $1 million through 2027, and then ongoing $500,000 paid through pretty much partially, if not entirely, through sales tax and the increase in half-cent sales tax coming down the road, which is on the November ballot. This is what the city of Santa Barbara wants to do, but the city of Santa Barbara wants to do it without putting it through a request for proposals. I guess the chamber, the city of Santa Barbara have been talking about this for a few months, last budget season, and now it's finally happening. They just want to do it. They just want to say, hey, we're the most qualified. Let us do it. Let us create this economic development proposal. Let us bring you data. Let us analyze the data. Let us talk with our business leaders. Let us work on this So Much to Love in Santa Barbara branding campaign. Let's create districts all around town. Let's better maximize the financial potential of the waterfront. They have this sort of big plan that they want to do, and they're saying, like, just let us do it. Right? That'd be great, right? Let's get the council to approve it. This is not how government works. Like, the number one thing that I've heard in more than 20 years of government reporting that conservatives, economic conservatives hate, business leaders hate, is this perceived waste of taxpayer dollars that government does whenever it wants to pay for something or is in trouble. This lack of transparency in government. This is a thing that happens all the time. Private business, economic conservatives, they're always saying, if you had to run your business like we do, you'd go out of business because government just raises fees or passes a tax or pulls into its ample reserves. And this is something that private business can't really do. They have to lay off or dramatically cut costs, or in some cases, they go out of business, okay? So transparency is the thing. Like, that's the number one thing that economic conservatives want out of government. And what is the chamber? What is the leadership of the chamber? Conservatives, economic conservatives. So it's kind of like flabbergasting to me to sit there in the room and watch. I just had a big meeting at the finance committee. This argument being made that the best use of taxpayer funds is to just handshake, partner with the chamber. Like, if that were any other organization, there would be outrage to be like, what are you going to do that for? Why are you just going to hand over this contract? It's odd to me. And so the city of Santa Barbara doesn't have to do a request for proposals. It's a professional services contract, but they should. I mean, it should, because you're only going to strengthen the chamber's proposal. They'll probably win anyway, because there's naturally going to be a deference and a bias toward the local bidder. But I mean, if everyone's stronger through competition, that's like a fundamental conservative economics principle. And so the idea that the conservatives who run the chamber, who are in the chamber, would, I mean, I'm not blaming them. Like they're just trying to get the money to do what they think is the right thing for the community. But it's odd to me. And then the city of Santa Barbara is just like, okay. So the only thing I can think of is that we have a new city administrator, Kelly McAdoo. We have a relatively new finance director and Keith DeMartini. And obviously when you're new, you want to make an impact. It's human nature. You're like, I can do this. I know things haven't worked in the past, but there's something different, special about me that can make it work. And so maybe that's kind of what they're thinking. But you got to know your history. We had an economic development manager hired in 2020, Jason Harris, then Rebecca Bjork eliminated the position in 2023. All of those ideas that are in the current plan, Jason Harris had those plans, and that was what he wanted to do. He also wanted to talk to downtown business owners and commercial real estate owners to deal with the vacant storefront issue. Okay. And he was on staff, and what was he paid? $140,000 a year or something like that, much less than this ongoing contract. But he got cut. Or the position got cut. And so before that, the city did this report, couple of reports. The Cosmont report is, legendary in the halls of City Hall because they recommended that the city of Santa Barbara needs to do this. And so we have a whole history. And I guess now the new leadership is saying, oh, let's start fresh and do it over with the chamber. And I would just urge them to think about, do we want to do a request for proposals? It might slow the process down. It might mean that it's not going to happen immediately, but that's what smart leaders do. What is the thing Dr. Dan Secord used to say on the city council? I want to do it right, but not right now. And that's what Santa Barbara needs to do. Multiple things here. Santa Barbara just came out of its budget cycle. They just approved its budget, and now this expenditure is coming outside of the budget. That's a precedent to set, and it's kind of unfair to all those other organizations that did not get money because the city of Santa Barbara said it didn't have any money, and now we're just taking reserves and saying, okay, let's do this. Apparently, there's ample reserves in the airport and waterfront, not in the general fund, and so we just came out of this process. So why is that fair? That this can happen. I guess it started, the conversation started before, so it isn't like it just came up in July. But here we are now, and the Santa Barbara is looking to spend this money outside of the budget cycle. Council member Meagan Harmon suggested a request for proposals. John Stedman from the Harbor Commission, who spoke at the meeting, requested or suggested a request for proposals. It seems like the right thing to do. And from a media perspective, I get frustrated that when government tries to do this because I just think they have a lack of respect for media. They just think we're not watching or we're not paying attention or whatever. But it's there's few of us around who remember things, and it's just, I don't know. It's what is the downside of doing a request for proposals and slowing it down a little bit? The chamber will probably win. I mean, Marburg always wins. It's because they're here. There's really no other competitor. That said, I have to mention, what's the downtown organization's role in all this? The city pays them every year, and they do branding, they do marketing. So they weren't there represented at this Tuesday meeting. Also, the city just approved this community benefit improvement district. I should say the property owners did, but actually the city was the deciding factor in that because they own property, and if they not supported it, it wouldn't have passed. But they own a large percentage of the property downtown. So that just happened. It just seems kind of odd. It feels like it's kind of trying to make this happen, I don't want to say it's not deceptive, but it's just kind of weird. It's just interesting. And the fact that these professionals don't see the need to do a request for proposals for something like this is odd, because I mean, if you're in government and you're not aware of the public perception, that's crazy to me. And it might be that all the business leaders think this is a good idea. That's because they stand to benefit from this $500,000. Okay. But you have to look at it as like, what's the right government thing to do here? Is it to just go into this no competitive contract situation with this organization and then hope for the best? Or is it, let's do what we normally do, which is put out a request for proposals and find the most competitive contract and then award it? And the chamber will probably still get that contract. But you don't always want to just do things quickly and expeditiously because you can. Sometimes you got to like step back. And this is where kind of a wise, you know, big thinker at City Hall would be really valuable. Somebody who could say, you know, we could do this, but it's going to be better to do this. I imagine the council will approve this in August. I think that they're optimistic, they're hopeful, they're solutions minded. It is an election year, so everybody acts crazy during an election year. But I I know in most other circumstances, they're saying, hey, we need to put this out to bid to get a most competitive contract for our money. Okay. So it's just something to think about. And, it's out there now. So we'll see what happens going forward. Councilmember Meagan Harmon laid out a bunch of criticisms. She did support moving it to the council. The other council members on the finance committee expressed similar concerns. So I guess we'll see when it gets there. I'm sure it'll be a robust debate. Okay, let's move on to one last thing. Mike Jordan, Santa Barbara City Council member, did not receive the endorsement of the Santa Barbara County Democratic Central Committee in his bid for re-election. He had the endorsement the first time. He did not get the endorsement this time. And my smile is not glee that he didn't get the endorsement. But again, it's sort of like befuddlement. Why didn't he get the endorsement? Mike Jordan does not support rent control. And rent control is the big issue of the day right now in the upcoming election. So Jordan, he doesn't support it. I guess, he thinks there's a different kind of solution to the problem of people being evicted, to rents rising, and people leaving the community. Now, Mike Jordan is a sensible guy. He's a quirky guy. If you watch him on the council, he says things that make you go, oh my goodness, Mike, I can't believe you just said that in public. But he knows his stuff. He's like a really smart dude. He's been on the planning commission. He is somebody who should be on the city council. If you're going to grab people to be on the city council, he's probably somebody who should be there. He cares. He's passionate. He's got kids in the community, grandkids. And he's been through it all, and he loves his stuff, and he knows his stuff, and he's a Democrat. He's not a conservative guy. He's a pro-housing guy. He's a liberal Democrat. He's not a progressive Democrat, but he is a liberal Democrat. And so the idea that he is not getting this endorsement over rent control, and the way I understand it was that the recommendation at the meeting was whether to consider him for an endorsement. And there was conversation about that, but no one recommended that he be endorsed. So that's different than a non-endorsement. So it technically could come back up at a future meeting, but there wasn't support right out of the gate because they asked him a question about whether he supports rent control, and he doesn't. And so he's out. I just got to say this, right? It's frustrating because I really like a lot of people on the Democratic Central Committee and have a lot of respect for one of them who I'm not going to name. Lots and lots of respect, someone who I admire. It's frustrating that you wouldn't endorse a Democrat who has a differing point of view on rent control when they're a reliable voter in a lot of other solidly Democratic issues. Now, I don't care. Michael Jordan doesn't get reelected. It doesn't really change my life. I have no personal stake in it, but as a reporter covering these individuals who know stuff on the council, he's one of them. Like, he has information in his brain that contributes to the conversation that makes things a little bit smarter, a little bit better. And not always. He's obviously wrong on stuff. And, he's probably wrong on some of the tenant protection issues. And, he's possibly wrong on rent control and the fact that we have to do something to stop this exodus of people from the community. But it's better to have conversations with these people about these things, work with them, and figure out some sort of compromise. I don't even think I guess Mike does have an opponent. It's someone's school paper, so I don't know anything about that person other than a name I saw. But he's kind of like, Mike's been there. He was endorsed the first time. He is not perfect. He is no Meagan Harmon. He is not Oscar Gutierrez when it comes to Democratic principles. He's not a progressive Democrat. He's not Kristen Sneddon. No, he's somewhere more in the middle because he does talk to those business people. He does talk to the commercial real estate people. He does have conversations and relationships with those people. But it's really important that you have someone like that who has conversations with those people who, if they have their ear, he can actually make them think differently, possibly. So it's just kind of weird because it's in a town where a guy like Mike Jordan can't get the endorsement of the Democratic Central Committee. I don't know what that says about all those other people who are totally qualified, but may have a disagreement on a fundamental issue like rent control. Maybe they'll reconsider. Maybe he'll get the endorsement down the road. I don't think Mike's going to change his position on rent control. I think he cares about tenants based off of his questions. I think that he would love to stop this increase in the dramatic increases in rents. And he'd like to see people stop leaving this community. But I also think he's got the commercial real estate people in his ear, and they're putting pressure on him. And they see him and Eric Friedman and Randy Rouse and Alejandro Gutierrez as people that will listen to them. And so Mike, being a Santa Barbara guy, wants to listen to a lot of people knows these people, he listens to them. So he's more looking for a pragmatic compromise. Now you can argue, no, we don't want that. But is that the only thing you're going to measure this guy on? He's essentially a good Democrat. I mean, there has to be more like layers to the conversation about him, unless there's some other person out there. If there's some other person out there we are for rent control and we're a strong Democrat, and you feel like that person's a better candidate. Okay, but as far as I can tell, it's just like, nope, Mike, you're not getting it. And I don't think there's any other endorsement happening in that district right now. So what does this mean for the contest? Probably not much. Mike Jordan is probably going to get reelected. He's got his own brand. He's very popular on the Mesa, and he has all these connections in the community. But it is going to hurt him in the sense that if he does have a strong opponent, if they emerge at the last second, I mean, if you're a Democrat, you want to be on that door hanger, you want to be on that website, you want to be on that flyer with all the other Democrats, right? With Salud Carbajal and Kamala Harris and every other Democrat up the ticket who's running for reelection. Like, you want to be on that because most people don't have time to research all this stuff. They look at who's endorsing, the organizations they trust, and then they support that person. And if Mike Jordan's not on that list, that is going to hurt him. It's also going to hurt him in the sense that the Democratic Party is very powerful, and they have a lot of volunteers, and they go out there and they knock on doors and they work hard to get their candidates endorsed. Like, if you're a Democrat, you want that support. It is important. Like Alejandro Gutierrez, the last election, won by 8 votes. Those 8 votes, I guarantee you, were because of the Democratic Central Committee's work in that community. I don't know how many total, but I know it was at least 8 votes, and it made the difference. So you want that support. Mike will have his own team, and he'll probably be just fine. And most of the energy of this election is going to be on the east side and the west side. Dem Party wants Wendy Santa Maria to win, and she's very formidable, and I would say is the front runner to win that seat, even over the incumbent for a lot of reasons. And then Oscar Gutierrez now his opponent, and Tony Becerra, who's also popular on the West Side. So that's going to take some of their resources. So I think the party's going to be mostly focused on that, and like Mike can do his own thing. So Mike's not going to lose because of the lack of this endorsement, but it does sting him a little. And I think that there has to be a way to have conversations with these candidates in a way that is bigger than just one issue, because people out in the world care about multiple issues. And when you're an elected official, you kind of have to. You kind of have to listen to all these perspectives. It can't just be one perspective. And I mean, he probably should support rent control. Like he absolutely should. If I were his political advisor, I would say, Mike, just support rent control. Like, what is the big deal? It's going to pass anyway. And so, you know, why don't you work with both sides to reach out a compromise that if it's not 2% or 3% is something that will work, 4%, whatever. I don't know what that is. That's your job. But from as a practical matter, he probably should. But the Dem Central Committee, as a practical matter, should not abandon him because he doesn't, because he's a good Democrat and people are complex and there's lots of different reasons to support somebody. So that's all I got for today. Thanks a lot for your time. Sorry I rambled a little bit. Visit SantaBarbaraTalks.com. Hit subscribe on YouTube. As always, you can send me an email, josh@SantaBarbaraTalks.com. Let me know your feedback. All right. Have a great day. Thank you.